Move along. $25 for this thing. The only problem is the mesh eyes, but it's so much easier to breathe in than any other helmet or mask I have worn. Pretty nice. Anyways, welcome to today's episode of D20 Sundays, playing in an established universe. We've all wanted to do it. I know I have. Unfortunately, my knowledge of the universe that I want to play in is not that vast. It's actually quite limited. I'll get to that later, but here are some of the problems of playing in an established universe before we get into the tips of how to do it. The first problem is that you might have players who know the lore and background better than you do. If that's the case, then, well, they're going to call you out whenever you make a mistake. It's like, oh, so-and-so would never do that. That's against his code that was in the one book, in the one episode that, is fully explained. It's like, well, you didn't see that one, so you didn't know that. And it's going to happen. It happens. You're going to have that one guy who's truly a diehard fan of whatever you're playing in, and he knows the ins and outs of everything. And there's also the established universe problem of creative rights. Now, what I mean by creative rights is also creative freedom, which is making something different than what it is in the books and the movies or whatever. It's already established that it's a certain way, so making it go against that way or do something completely different is hard to do and is frowned upon because it's not like it should be. And that could be a seriously annoying problem if you have like an overall idea and you require like one or two particular people to be a certain way, but they would never do that. That goes against their code of ethics. That goes against what they've always been for. And so how do you get around the two big problems of playing an established universe? First off, have a session 0. A session 0 is where you have your players get together and roll up their characters and you explain the general plot. You don't give away major details, just a general idea and summary of what they're going to be playing in. You also explain whether or not you know the lore as extensive as they do. And if you don't, be honest about it. They'll be way more forgiving of you if you're honest about it. Not to mention, they might help you in some parts if you talk to them one-on-one, that when it comes to areas you don't know as well as they do. And that's very important because it builds trust between the dungeon master and the player or players. Another thing you can do is, even during, and you would have to mention this during the session 0, is that you're playing on an alternate timeline. And the reason why I say that is because it's an alternate timeline, alternate universe. The good guys are possibly the bad guys are possibly the good guys, or people's roles were reversed. This guy was the captain of the ship, but now he's not the captain of the ship. He's the quartermaster, and this person's the captain of the ship instead. Different things like that. Make people's personalities slightly different from what they are in the books or in the movies or in the shows or whatever. And the reason why you want to do that as an alternate universe is to show that they are different from what they originally were. That they're very similar, but they're small things about them. And it helps prevent metagaming. Like I said, you got the one guy who knows the lore better than you do, so he knows that this one particular guy is a traitor and he's going to try and kill everyone. So he kills him first before he can betray everyone. So that's metagaming. That should be punished by the fact that he's actually the traitor and he just killed the good guy because he thought he was killing the traitor. Yeah, it's kind of being a dick, but that's what you get. Sorry, my mouth and throat is dried out for some reason, but we shall persevere. So another thing you could do for playing an established universe to make it your own as well as to make it fun is make the players the heroes. Instead of Frodo being the one who carries the one ring to Mordor and into Mount Doom, it's one of the players. He has to be the ring bearer. And instead of Legolas, you've got, I guess, Grog or Borky or something. I don't know. You make them have their own group that is supposed to go and throw the ring into Mount Doom. They are their own fellowship. Instead of being a Frodo and Legolas, Gimli, and I think Aragorn and Gandalf, instead of them, it's your players. That way, they're not like just behind the heroes, always like cleaning up the mess that they left behind, or they're having to protect the heroes the whole time. None of that. Another thing that you can do to make sure that you have a good established universe campaign is not to have plot point characters show up. I know it would be kind of badass to have while the players are storming an Imperial base for Darth Vader to show up and chase them off. But if Darth Vader happens to kill them, well, guess who's going to have to roll up new characters, and they're going to be pissed because the DM threw them against something that they couldn't possibly defeat. Or worse yet, if they killed Darth Vader, then, well, congratulations, you just severely crippled the entire Empire and messed up the rest of the timeline. Good job. Yeah, that's what I mean by don't have plot point characters. You could probably like have them show up like on I don't know, spectral images or holograms or whatever, but don't have them fully interact with the party because it's like you're not going to be able to kill him. Why? He's got plot armor. So, and it's just it's a difficult thing to deal with. So, on to my story, now that I have covered my points and so on. My story of dealing with an established universe game is this. Back when I was doing Pathfinder for my first group, the one that Steve was in, I was asked by two of my players if I would be willing to run a Star Wars themed campaign. And I said I would think upon it. And I did. I thought about it for like 2 weeks, and then, we got together again, and I was like, I can't do it. I cannot run a game for Star Wars because I don't know the lore well enough in order to do the game justice. And it's true. At that point, I did not know the lore well enough. I basically barely remembered the movies at that point, and that was it. And now we have new movies coming out, and I basically know the movies. And some of the comics. And like a couple of the episodes from Star Wars Clone Wars that's on Netflix. That's it. My knowledge of the whole universe is not that vast. Which can be a problem, but it is what it is. So now I am part of the Dark Jedi Brotherhood, which is, I believe, the number one, if not like one of the most expansive and biggest Star Wars fan clubs. We do a lot of fiction and a lot of competitions and stuff, to keep it a very interesting club to be a part of. And still my knowledge of the Star Wars universe isn't that vast, but I know enough to get by, and I can justify it by the fact that as essentially a player in this universe, I don't need to know everything. I only need to know what my character knows. And it makes my character that much more convincing. He may have heard whispers here and there about, the First Order has recently, risen from the ashes from the Empire. But he doesn't know that for a fact. He's just a gambler on a outer rim planet. Speaking of the original Pathfinder group I had and them asking me to run a Star Wars based campaign for them, they actually have their own YouTube channels now. And again, I'm sorry for all the drinking of the water, but my throat and mouth are drying out. Do not know why. Anyways, those two players started their own YouTube channels. They are known as Double Blanks Gaming. I'll leave a description and link in the description for them. The first one is Jay of Double Blanks Gaming, and he was playing, if I remember correctly, Rohan, the dwarf cleric, in the original campaign. The other part of Double Blanks Gaming is Sir Christopher. Now, Sir Christopher also has his own channel, but he played Noah, or Salty Noah, the rogue, in the original campaign. And the two of them have been really great friends. They are part of the reason that I started doing this YouTube thing. They inspired me to do so. And they put out content pretty often, so if you don't mind, go ahead and just give them a look-see just to see how they're doing. Right now they're doing a lot better than I am, but it is what it is. But yeah, those two are the ones who asked me to do the Star Wars campaign, and I felt bad kind of letting them down not being able to do it. But at the same time, I'm glad that they were able to eventually start doing something that they truly enjoyed, and that's Star Wars Destiny. If you're not familiar with it, it's a trading card game with dice, and don't worry, Salty Noah, or Sir Christopher, still has terrible rolls every now and then. Like, awful, awful rolls. He does get good rolls now, though, so, he doesn't constantly need the cleric of Desna constantly giving him rerolls, so there's that. Anyways, that's it for today's session. Later.